Okay, and we're live on YouTube. Woo! Yay! Okay, now we are going to go live on Facebook as well. So,
and listen, I'm not mad. I just have one of those resting bee faces. My eyebrows will automatically go down. I'm a perfectly happy person.
That is so funny.
It's true. Like the other day, I left church early, and Kathy Hayes comes up to me at church on Sunday. She's like, "Girl, you look so mad on Wednesday. What happened?" I'm like, "Nothing. It's just my face."
It just does that. It goes into automatic mode. Okay. Hi, everybody. We were having some technical difficulties, but I think we've got it situated. So we are going to do some epoxying today. Marylina came over the other day with her daughter, Bethany, and we had a really good time pouring, and we're going to epoxy the pieces that they poured on that day. So what we're going to do is get our epoxy ready. I am using Stone Coat Countertop Part A and B, and it's the Art Coat with the Ultra V protection, and it's my favorite so far when I'm working with wood and canvas. If I'm doing glitter tumblers, I like to use the art resin, but this one so far is my favorite for this kind of thing. So we're going to get our gloves on. And Marylina has never epoxied. So I told her, come on over and we'll do your pieces that y'all poured on. So you're what? Yeah, she is an epoxy virgin. Yeah, she used to be a dirty pour virgin. She's not that anymore. Right. I took care of that for her. I showed her how to dirty pour.
That's right.
So,
and now I'm hooked.
Yes, now she's hooked. She went out and bought some supplies of her own.
I did.
And poured this weekend.
I did.
How many pieces did you do?
5.
Oh,
and
my
you know
gosh.
what happened? My very favorite one. I had them on cups like this so they dry overnight.
Yeah.
And one of them in the morning or something, I'm not sure what happened, started to tip over.
Oh,
well, this is my husband's story. Started to tip over, so he like grabbed it before it fell. So yeah, there's a bit of a paw print.
Not paw print, but funny. Yeah, handprint.
He's like, but it's the one I wanted, so it's okay. I said, all right.
Oh,
the other 4 that
I hate when that happens. So I'm going to be doing Bethany's, which is super, super cool. She did like a drizzle on hers when she was here, and she really got some pretty design in there and added some glitter to it. And then we also have our coasters that we're going to be doing. So it doesn't take a lot of epoxy. Now, you can go on artresin.com, and they actually have a calculator. And it'll tell you, measure out your piece, put in the inches, and it'll tell you how many ounces of resin it needs. However, I usually do half of that or less, because I don't need mine to be like an 1/18 of an inch thick. I just want a really, what do you call it?
Thin coat?
Yeah, I want a very thin coat.
Shiny.
Yeah, just so it'll be shiny. So I don't need a really thick coat. So what we're going to do is I like to mark my cups of how much resin I think we're going to need. So let me eyeball this really quick. And I think we're going to do about half. So what I do is I find something, the height that I want to mark my cup. And that's probably not enough. I need a little bit more than that. So I'm just marking my mixing cup right now. Yep. All right. And then if we have to make more, we can always mix more.
Okay.
So I just try to get the height of where I want to mark. And I do that right there. And you can use anything, just anything to give you the height, you know, where your line is going to be.
They have to be equal parts.
Yes, it has to be equal parts of A and B. If it's not equal parts, then your piece might not cure. It'll remain sticky and tacky, a little mushy. So you definitely want it to cure. When you're working with epoxy, on the Stone Coat, it says I'm looking for the degrees. Oh yeah, okay, 65 to 80. I like to be safe and do 68 and above.
Oh, okay.
The temperature, yeah. If it's below that temperature, then like I said, that it's not going to cure properly. So it works best in those temperatures, the 60. They say 65 and above. I like to say 68 and above. All right, so then we are going to pour part B into 1 cup.
Do you start with part B all the time?
Well, actually, I start with the thinner one, which is, yes, the part B.
Okay.
And Diana was so nice. When she came out here, she marked my bottles for me so I wouldn't get it wrong. But the thinner one goes in first for me, just because it's then easier to put the thick one in when you're mixing them together. So right here, it doesn't matter because we're using separate cups. But when you're mixing them, I like to put the thinner one in first. Okay. And then here's a popsicle stick to catch your drip.
Oh, shoot. I catch drips better with my right hand.
Yeah. I do too. Isn't that funny? I pour with my left and catch it with my right.
We're right-handed. Well, I am anyway.
And you went a little bit over.
Yeah,
so just keep that in mind when you do your other one.
Do you just to pour it back in?
No, that's okay. Just keep that in mind because we might need extra anyways.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. And I'm going to try not to screw that on tight because my wax paper did not last very long. And so now we want the part A. I usually mark the bottom of my cups too, or the side of it. Yeah. Because if we have to remix, you don't want to compromise the other when you're mixing. Okay, so now B. Now, if you'll notice, B is going to come out slower. It's like a sloth. And look at how thick it is. Yeah. So right before I get to the line, I'll stop the flow and let it rise and settle. Yeah. You're going to want yours to go a little bit past your line. And you don't mix your popsicle sticks either. You want to keep them. Okay. So this is going to settle a little bit, but I'm happy with it. They look pretty equal. And then we're going to pour it into a separate cup. See how thick it is? There's a lot of epoxy resins on the market. A lot of people start learning with Alumilite, which is a brand that you can pick up. Yeah, keep going. You're good. You won't go over. Yeah, because you have to go over the line. So, yeah, you're fine. I know. A little bit more. Nope, a little bit more. Yep. That's probably good right there. Let's see, did it go?
Yeah, I got to that.
Yeah, it looks like they're both equal as far as going over the line. That's good. So a lot of people, like myself, I learned with Alumilite. You can buy it at Michael's or Hobby Lobby. You cannot use a coupon on them anymore. The companies are making it so that Hobby Lobby does not give the coupon out. Just like Cricut machines, you can't go to Hobby or Michael's and use it on a Cricut machine. That's the company, the Cricut company or whatever that does that, not Hobby Lobby. It's in their contract, is what I guess I'm trying to say. Yeah. So anyways, it's less expensive. They have smaller bottles. The only bad thing about the Alumilite, it will yellow your piece. So if you don't care anything about your piece and you're just worried about getting technique down, then by all means go buy Alumilite. Once you get really going good with Alumilite, then you want to advance yourself. Then you're like, okay, now I don't want my pieces to turn yellow and I really want the good stuff. And the good stuff for me, I have found is either Stone Coat or Art Resin. Art Resin is the other one. I don't think I have a bottles in here. They're in my glitter counter. Those are the two that I like using now. They are UV protected. art resin is FDA compliant, so you can use it on glitter tumblers. It's not going to hurt someone if they have contact, you know, to their mouth. So anyways, this is now what I use. So what we're going to do is we're going to pour the more fluid one in into your white cup. You're just going to pour, 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 pour. And then you're going to scrape the edges. And trust me, it's going to hug the sides of the cup. So you're going to be scraping for a couple of minutes because every little bit has to come out. Every little tiny drip matters because it just has to be equal parts. And if you wanted to, you could use one of those anchor measuring and just pour like 1 ounce of one in there and then pour when it gets up to 2 ounces, then you have equal parts. Yeah. And you don't have to do all this. The only thing is it's such a pain to clean epoxy off of the glass. You have to, it's a chore. And I didn't like the chore part of it. So I figured, well, I'll just do plastic cups then. I was trying to save, see if I could save pennies, you know, wherever I can save. And it just wasn't worth it to me. It gets really sticky, and if you don't clean it right away, then you have a mess. Okay, and then we'll set that cup aside. Put your popsicle stick in the white cup, and then grab your next popsicle stick, and we're going to pour the thick one in there. Now, this one's going to be harder to scrape all the edges. It's like a really super thick honey that has not been warmed.
Wow.
Yeah. And if we have too much, if we made too much, I'll just use it to put it on some other pieces behind me that are waiting for epoxy.
Well, you don't have many.
Yeah, right. I've got an epoxy graveyard. Yeah. That's one of my projects is to just epoxy a few at a time, get them done so I can get them listed, posted. And then just on the bottom, scrape the ridges on the bottom just like that because you'll pick up. Look at how much more I can pick up just by scraping the sides and getting the ridges. And when you think you got it, we're good. Okay, then leave that popsicle stick in that cup. And then we're going to stir for 3 minutes. So when you're ready, we'll start stirring.
Alrighty.
And then you just kind of want to stir it slow. And you're going to start in like a clockwise motion. Okay. And then once you can tell that it's really starting to mix well, then you can do zigzags, horizontal and vertical, and then start stirring again. And then stop and horizontal, vertical, and then stir again. And that just kind of helps it to get mixed and gel together. And you do this for 3 minutes. Of course, do it based on what the instructions say. Every epoxy company is different. Most of them say to stir for 3 minutes, but just make sure you pay attention to whatever their directions say, whichever one you decide to use. So we've stirred for 1 minute. We've got 2 more minutes left. Is Bethany in classes today?
She had class this morning, and then she got a job at Edible Arrangements.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah. So she went there after class.
We're going on 2 minutes.
If you do it too fast, do bubbles?
You get a lot of the micro bubbles, and I mean, bubbles aren't a bad thing. I just try not to create. If I can stay away from creating them, I'll do it. That's why you bring out the heat gun though, or if you want to work with a torch, you can use those culinary torches and just kind of wand it really quick, and it'll pop the bubbles for you. You can also use the torch for creating cells when you're doing your pouring. You just don't want it to sit too long.
Yeah.
Because you can scorch it. I've scorched my acrylic paints before.
Oh, you have?
On a board. I was able to fix it though. You couldn't tell. Yeah. And I recommend doing it in see-through cups just so that you can see. Normally I will mix in a see-through cup, but I just don't have the right size today. You can tell though if you bring it out with your popsicle stick.
It's really milky when we first started.
Yeah, it is. It's very milky in the beginning. If you're just watching, we are learning to epoxy. And I've got Marylina here with me today. Oh, if you're watching on Facebook, you can't see her. That's not fair.
Yeah, can you see my hand?
Yeah, you can see her hand. She's cheating. Whoops. Suspected spam. Isn't that nice? Those are nice phone calls to get. And just make sure you scrape the side of your cup, because the bee will want to just really hug the sides of the cup. So I just like to scrape it and just stir it really good. Go in the opposite direction. And I think we're ready to go.
It's not this thick anymore.
Oops, excuse me.
Like.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yours looks really good.
I did a good job.
You did a really good job, because look at mine.
Oh yeah, you got lots of bubbles.
Yeah, I do. She did a really good job.
Thank you.
Okay, so then what we're gonna do is, that one's used, right? Yeah. We're going to, there's a couple of ways how you can do this.
Once you wait the 3 minutes after you stir it, how long is it good for?
Every brand is different. Stone Coat says up to an hour and a half, and it helps if you keep applying heat to it with either a heat gun or a torch. Blow dryer doesn't really get it hot enough, but you can tell and we're going to use the heat gun. You'll be able to see. Actually, you know what? Let's move over before we start this way, and I'll tell you why. Because my heat gun has to be able to reach you. Okay. So let's just kind of shift everything. Done with that. Yeah, so I'm glad I remember that, because the heat gun will need to shift or reach, not shift. Okay, so we're really close to the camera now. There she is. I wish I could turn the camera sideways, but it really doesn't let us. So if you're watching on Facebook, there's a good view. It's up to you which one you want to watch on. But so what we're going to do is, there's not a wrong way or a right way. I can just tell you what I've done, and you'll have your own way. But I like to pour it in the center, just like that. And I go out into the corners and just start drizzling it. And then what you're going to do is you're going to get your popsicle stick. You're not going to use all of it though. There should be some left. See, I have that much left. Okay. You can get a popsicle stick, and then you can just start buttering it. Okay. Just like it's a pancake and you're putting butter on a pancake. Or you can use your fingers. It doesn't matter. You've got a glove on, so we're just kind of spreading it around. If you have to lift it, on one side, that's okay. So I just, start pushing it outward. And I actually like to use my finger when I do it. I don't, the popsicle stick is good to move it around, but then when I think I got it moved around really good, I'll pick up or set it down and then just use your finger. And I'll tell you why, because your finger can tell where the dry spots are, because your finger will stop. It'll like,
oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
So the epoxy will make it, what's the word I'm thinking? Smooth?
smooth.
You know what I mean?
It will.
Okay.
It'll make it smooth and looking like glass.
So if someone doesn't use epoxy and they just, they pour and stuff, well, you know how when I ran my hand over this one, before we started doing the epoxy, it felt kind of bumpy.
Yep, the epoxy is going to cover all that up.
But if someone didn't put epoxy on it and they just, decide not to, but if they wanted to sand it, does that mess up the
It'll
color?
mess up the paint, yeah.
Okay.
So the trick to that is, if you don't want to epoxy, is to sand it really, really well before you even pour over it. Yeah, your acrylic paints.
Because that's what Kenneth was telling me. He was like, we can just sand it down the little part where he accidentally.
Yeah. Oh, now on glitter tumblers, when you're doing glitter tumblers, if I mess up on the glitter, I can actually sand the glitter tumbler and epoxy over it. That is one time where you can sand the surface. And then if you want to put it shiny on the edges, I just kind of push it and go over the edge with it, and then rub my finger over the edge. So you just kind of push it to the edge and then fold it over. But see how it's easy to smooth it with your finger once you kind of spread it out. You can use a spatula that is silicone. There's so many things that you can use. If you use a silicone spatula, the epoxy comes right off that silicone. You just bend the silicone and it just pops right off.
Yeah. I've seen some videos of that.
And if it's hard for you to get this one close to your abdomen, just turn it around, because I find it easier to push it away from me. You know what? I've got to take these popsicle sticks out. I use mason jar lids as my risers, but see, it's easier just to push it and then fold it.
Oh, okay. So you're
away from you. Okay. I push it and then fold it around that edge, and then I got all my edges, and all your edges are shiny. There. Okay. And then you're going to pick up your, I do it like this, so I don't, it's just easier for me if I do it like that. You can pour it on there, and you only need about a quart. Look at how much. I didn't put very much at all.
Okay.
So that's all it needs, because you're just smoothing it out with your finger. It doesn't take a lot. You know, I've learned the hard way to try to make my epoxy go as far as I can, because once you get into the bigger brands like this,
you don't want to waste it.
You don't want to waste it, because that right there was $50-something for the 2 bottles together. So it's not, epoxy is not cheap. So if I'm just wanting to preserve what's underneath, I don't really need a lot. Now there's some pieces that artists they'll use the epoxy a little bit thicker on their pieces because they're going for a certain look. And that's, that's fine too. It just depends on what, just really brings the piece to life.
It really does.
Okay. You've got an edge right here that's uncovered. So try to look at it,
right there.
Yep, sideways, or you can even just pick it up. And I've got a divot. I see a divot. So a divot is where the epoxy doesn't want to fill in. It could be so many different things. It could be the oils from our fingers when we were touching it. So I just fill in the divot, and I lift it again. There's that divot right there. I don't see any more divots.
Are those divots? I'm not sure what a divot is.
A divot just looks a dry spot. you've got something weird going on right here. Okay. Yep, that looks good. We're going to take some heat to it, and then we're going to look at them again. So I'm going to take my gloves off. You don't have to, but I need to take mine so I can handle the heat gun. And so what I do is I'm getting ready to order a torch. Tabitha, if you're watching this, I hope you're proud of me. It's already in my shopping cart, and I'm getting ready to send it to my daughter because she orders stuff for me on Amazon. And I am going to take the plunge and get me a torch. So what I do is I try to see the glare, and I don't know if you can probably tell more when I do it on your piece, but there's still bubbles on our pieces. Okay. So, oh gosh, look at how gorgeous that is. I know, get the drips back here underneath. Yeah. There was a lot that was, okay, there you go. Mm-hmm. And then just smooth it with your finger.
The more epoxy that you put on there, is it smoother? You know what I mean? Or
not really. I mean, you'll see when these dry, they're going to be really super smooth. The trick is just making sure you don't have any bubbles. So I'm going to turn this on to pop the bubbles. You can literally see the bubbles popping right in front of you. A torch will do the same thing. You know, if you wanted to use a torch. You do have to be careful when you're doing it over plastic like this, because the plastic, of course, will melt if you hold it, you know, too long. I can see some dry spots on my, turn it towards you. Yeah, let me get in there. Okay, that looks good. Okay. Go ahead and set it down, and I'm going to take the torch to it, and then we might add some more just so it can level itself out. All right, so I see a spot on mine right here. So what I do, this one, is I'll pick up just a little bit and I'll just drop it in there. Every time you add more epoxy, you have to take the heat gun to it, because now you're introducing more epoxy. So there's a little divot right there. A divot is just like it dips down, and you can like see the wood. See it when I see it. Yeah, you'll see it when you see it. I'll show it to you if I see any. Let me get the heat gun on yours, and then we might just pour the extra. What we have, we might just pour it so it'll just kind of level itself out, but then we'll have to take the heat gun to it again. Okay. Okay, so watch your hands. Do you see the little spraying bubbles that are just kind of popping? Let me see, right? Nope, they're already all popped. Okay, look on this one. You see them? You can't see it because you don't know what you're looking for. Yeah. But when you're putting the heat on it, little microscopic bubbles start popping.
Oh, that's so pretty.
Yeah, it is. It's gorgeous. Gorgeous, gorgeous. Okay, so I'm going to put my gloves back on, and then we're going to get some of the leftover epoxy, and we're just going to go ahead and pour it, especially on the big one.
Just the same way we did it before?
Yeah, you can do it. It'll self-level. So just the same way. Try not to get it close to the edges, because I don't want to lose any of it. I want it to just self-level. So after I get the first coat, I just kind of do this right here. And it's going to self-level. It's going to go where it needs to go. I just try to drizzle it as thin as I can around the edges, because like I said, I want it, as much of it to stay on the surface. And then over here, I'm going to do the same thing with whatever is left. I'm going to do this one right in the center. And, you know, when you start working with it, you'll get your own techniques, what is comfortable to you, what works for your hands, you know, and your art. And then we're going to take the heat gun to it. Anytime you get epoxy on your hands, Walmart brand white beads will get it right off.
There's a lot of epoxy on my hands.
Yep, there's a white bead right there. I love the Walmart, the Equate brand. I've tried other ones and they just don't work. They disintegrate and start leaving fuzzies all over my hands. So, okay, then we're going to take the heat gun again. And now my little bubble, like yours, is starting to push out. And I want it to do that. See if you can see, look at the glare and see if you can see the little bubbles popping. More so on yours. Hold on. Okay, ready?
Yeah. Yeah.
See them?
Oh, yeah,
it looks like a little spray. They're popping. There's millions of them. And the glitter kind of helps too. If there are going to be leftover bubbles, it just kind of helps. All right, I'm going to do yours really quick. See how they're popping? Yeah. And then, believe it or not, I try to babysit these for about another, I'd say 30 minutes. Because if any more divots are going to appear or show themselves, I want to be able to move the epoxy around. Hold on, you have a divot right there. It's not wanting to, so you just kind of move it around and then you take heat to it. And it evens it out. Now, let's say these dried for 2 days and you come back and you're like, oh man, there's a divot. You know, it created a divot. You can always put another thin layer over it. You know, like if you're doing it to showcase or for a customer or, but that looks really good.
It does. It's very, very pretty.
Some of the things that you're seeing raised, that can also be glitter that's just kind of sticking up over the paint.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it looks really good. I'm happy with it. Yeah, it's really, really pretty. Yep. So then these are going to dry. They'll probably dry for a good 48 hours. And like I said, it'll take sometimes up to a month to cure. And the best way to tell is you get your nail in an unobvious place and just try to imprint it with your nail. And if you can imprint the epoxy with your nail, then you know it's not cured yet. It's dry, but it's not cured yet. So then you know it needs more time to cure. So once these are cured and dried, then I'll, what I usually do is I'll put cork on the bottom of those or felt, whatever I have in stock. And that way it'll keep it from scratching any furniture that you put it on. Now this epoxy, they say that it can withstand up to 500 degrees Fahrenheit. So that means you can put a hot coffee mug, hot tea on it. Other than that, they're good to go.
Awesome.
Yep.
I wish y'all could see how pretty these are.
Oh, I'm going to take pictures on Facebook. If you're watching on Facebook, I'll be posting pictures. Probably after Marylina leaves, I'll do it because it's going to look the same now than when it's dry. It'll look the same.
Yeah.
But it just really makes all the detail. You would have thought that she painted this turquoise and then drizzled purple on it, but she didn't, which is so cool the way that it turned out. But remember when she put black in it, just little bits of black, and it's giving it definition on some of these lines, which is so pretty. I love it. Yours is just absolutely gorgeous
compared to when it started.
Yeah,
I still remember that.
Yeah, it's so pretty.
Love that. So pretty.
Isn't it pretty? From my view, I can see this line right here. It's metallic, and over here it looks so pretty. So the coasters look really good. Let me get some heat on this one. Mine is showing divots. So right And if I had extra epoxy, and I usually do try to leave just a little bit in the cup so I can scoop some out and just kind of,
just a little bit right.
yeah, you just drop it in the divot and it'll seal it. Anytime you introduce new, you always take a heat gun to it. That is absolutely beautiful, that coaster.
I love it. That's really, really pretty.
Oh, gorgeous. It's gorgeous, y'all. So, so pretty.
All right. I'm going to put it on my Instagram page.
I think you should. Okay. So if y'all have any questions about the epoxy or the process or anything like that, just drop it in the comments and let me know. I'll be happy to answer any questions. This is how I do epoxy. I've learned from all the great ones. I love watching Artists Till Death, Gina DeLuca, Mixed Media Girl, and there's several others, and their names always, get a blank. But anyways, if you have any questions, just let me know. But we're going to go ahead and end the video. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned something. I hope it encourages you to go out there and get some supplies and get artsy. And if you're watching on my YouTube channel, please hit subscribe and click on the bell so that way you'll get notifications when I do live videos. It won't always be dirty pouring. I'm also going to be introducing some live videos in jewelry making, glitter tumbler, and maybe even some heat press t-shirts. So I hope you'll follow me and join me on those videos. But thanks for watching today, y'all. Happy Monday. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye.